Hey everybody, how's it going? Today I want to do a video on this restaurant owner in Jersey that said, quote, "put me in jail," regarding running his restaurant alongside the COVID-19 restrictions, and give you some of my thoughts on it, which will probably lead to a lot of hate in the comments, which, well, at this point I just don't care. It says here, "Put me in jail, Montclair restaurant defies orders limiting capacity." It says the owner of a restaurant that has been cited at least 3 times for exceeding Governor Phil Murphy's executive orders limiting indoor dining capacity says he can't survive if he follows the rules. Make it a little bit bigger so it's easier to read. Cuban Pete's Restaurants and Tapas was mentioned by State Police Superintendent Pat Callahan during Murphy's news conference on Monday for, quote, "being well in excess of the capacity limit. Indoor dining at restaurants is currently limited to 25% of capacity, excluding employees. Tables must also be at least 6 feet apart, with a maximum of 8 customers per table. Diners must wear masks unless they are eating or drinking. Dominic Restiano is not only exceeding capacity, but is disregarding social distancing protocols. His normal capacity is 292 indoors and 88 outside. He says, I have no plexiglass. Masks I'm all for, but I'm not for the 25% capacity. Either we're open or we're not," Restiano told New Jersey 1015. "If you're afraid to go out, don't go out. The other people want to go out, leave them alone. It's a free country. That's what America is." He said it's impossible to run a restaurant at 25% capacity, and setting up tables 6 feet apart would put him out of business. "The reason I'm open is because I need money. I have bills. I have a mortgage. I got taxes. I got a lot of bills piling up in my kitchen right now. It's terrible," Restiano said. He says people are in a panic over the coronavirus and says people just have to be careful until a vaccine is available. He says it's like the measles again. And chickenpox. It's the same thing. Don't get me wrong, it's scary, but why can kids go to school and we can't go to restaurants, Restiano said. You go to Home Depot, it's packed. Why is Home Depot packed and I can't be packed? Epidemiologists say that crowded events and gatherings, particularly at bars and restaurants, are one of the riskiest places in a pandemic. People are less likely to contract the virus outdoors or where they can spread out for short periods of time in buildings with more square footage, air circulation, and higher ceilings. At least 14,363 people have died in New Jersey since March, among the 210,000 who have died in the United States. New COVID-19 cases have been inching upwards in New Jersey since the summer. Restiano said he invited the governor to have dinner at his restaurant so he could explain the restaurant business and the impact his executive orders are having. Restiano said he hired back all his workers when indoor dining reopened at 25% at the beginning of September, anticipating it would increase to 50% a week or two later and full capacity within a month. But no, he's not doing anything. He wants to shut us down again, I heard, Restiano said. Restiano says a lot of other restaurant owners in Montclair and elsewhere are afraid to speak out and defy the executive orders, but he is taking a stand. He said he's been issued 3 summonses so far by Montclair Police and the Essex County Prosecutor's Office. "They want to put me in jail. I don't care. Put me in jail," I told them. "This is what I'm doing. I'm a restaurant owner. You gave me permits from the health department. You gave me permits from the fire department. You gave me permits from the state. I'm staying open," Restiano said. And I'm very curious to see how this case winds up proceeding. My guess is that he is going to stick his neck out, and I'm going to take a wild guess that based on what I've seen happen in other instances like this, it's because he's sticking his neck out rather than just kind of being silent about it and pretending that he's following the rules, that he's most likely going to, off with your head for not doing what he's supposed to do. And there's one line here that really struck with me. There was the line where he said that if you're afraid to go out, don't go out. The other people want to go out, leave them alone. It's a free country. That's what America is. Hi, Mr. Clinton. Indeed, it is a free country, Mr. Clinton. I know. So the thing that this reminded me of was an experience I had with a customer, and it was either late March or early April this year. And I think I've spoken about it in some other videos. It was someone that came by very clearly, like absolute minimum age here. Minimum was like somewhere in the 80s, probably in the 90s, approaching the 100 area. She showed up with like the eyewear, face mask, N95, a covering, gloves, was spraying stuff and everything. And I just, out of sheer curiosity, had to ask her because she said, I'm surprised you're open. I wasn't sure if you were supposed to be open. And I said, I'm not quite sure either. It says tech support for online services in Cuomo's order. Fuck if I know what that means. And, I just said out of curiosity, while I was talking to her, I asked why she was here. And she said, I'm here for data recovery. I actually wound up fixing the machine so she didn't need data recovery. There was a problem with it not turning on because of water, and we got it to work so she didn't need like actual data recovery in the store. And she was very happy because what she had on there was a book that she had been writing, and she had been working, I think it was for JP Morgan, I forget, it was, she did something in money management, and she said she had been doing this money management job for something around 50 to 60 years, which leads me to believe I'm not very far off when I say that she's probably into her 80s. And what she really wanted to do was write this one particular book, and she didn't make time to do it. But since she had been working from home and since she had more time off because of the pandemic, she actually had time to do what she had wanted to do with her whole life. She didn't have a backup for it. So she's saying that she lost access to this book, and she had spent about a month and a half writing it, and she finally got like 90 and 95% of it done, and she loved it. And I said, so it took you, if let's say it took you 50 to 60 years to write this, what it seems like from everything that you're wearing that you take this pandemic seriously. It seems like this is something that you are concerned about getting, and like, let's just be honest here. You're old. You're the one that's going to die this sooner if you get it than I am. So what led you to come here or leave your house during this time? And she said, I waited 50 or 60, I forget what it was. Like, I waited 50 years to write this. I wasn't going to wait. I can't wait another few months to see if what I wrote is actually there. And I just found that interesting. And what I also find interesting, and this is the part where everybody's going to lose their shit, is because I'm open to going out there and speaking to people. I want to hear what other people think. I want to hear if they agree with me or disagree with me. I like speaking to random people that may or may not share my opinions. It's interesting to learn. Is every time I speak to people who will say, when you say, well, if you're going outside, even if the people who don't want to go outside because they're afraid don't go outside, you could be potentially infecting someone who then infects the mailman who then goes to see the person who stays inside. I'm like, all right, I'm curious about that. So I asked this customer, and then I would ask other people that I met that were very elderly what they thought of this. And what I find interesting is that when I speak to people in the younger generation, a lot of the people from the younger generation appear to believe, yeah, I agree with that. That's true. You don't want to potentially kill grandma. Whereas when I speak to people from the older generation who are at the highest risk of death by far, if you look at the statistics, they're the ones that would just look at me and say, they won't even, honestly, they don't even really say anything. They just kind of stare at me like I'm a fucking moron. And I find that to be incredibly telling. It seems to be, in my experience, and you tell me what you think about this, it seems to be the older people that are the ones that are more likely to say, if you're afraid to go out, don't go out. The other people who want to go out, leave them alone. It's a free country. That's what America is. I don't want to lose my files. And you know what? I'm not willing to wait until the pause order is over to come to you and see if my data's there. That's a risk that I'm willing to take, and I don't care. I find that really strange. I find that really interesting, and it's just one of those things that I've always found interesting when it comes to politics and social issues. It's just one of those things I've always found certain areas of agreement or disagreement interesting. One of them is that vegans tend to be pro-choice. Meat eaters are usually pro-life people are meat eaters, and like the pro-choice people are vegan. I've always found that to be hysterical. Like, I don't care which view you have. I just find it strange that if you go to a vegan meetup, everybody is pro-choice. If you go to a pro-life meetup, every one of them eats meat. It's just one of those things I've always found interesting. And this is one of those other dichotomies that I found interesting, which is that when I meet with people who are really like, how dare you? How dare you have a restaurant? You're a selfish piece of shit. It tends to be the people that are younger, where you're really in that, like, Mr. Clinton hair on his back, if even chance of dying if you get the virus. Whereas the people who are like, it's no big deal, are people who are in the demographic that are most likely to die. That's interesting. Kind of curious what you all think. I've gotten a lot of shit for the fact that I stayed open throughout the length of the pause order. I said to my staff, if you want to stay home, you could stay home. If you want to come to work, you can come to work. I'll try to find a way to pay you. Hey, just doing math. If everybody does the stay home thing, that means that we're done for. I'll be able to pay you for the next 9, 11 weeks, and then after that, this will revert to being a vacant space, and well, let's just say a lot more customers are going to be going to the Apple Store. But we worked it out, and things went fine. You know, we've had our hiccups here and there, but things went fine. And I don't know. Like, I look back at a lot of the hate mail and a lot of the crap that I got in March for staying open and the shit comments that I got. And, like, if I had to do it all again, like, hindsight being 2020, there's very little that I would have changed about what I did. I'm not sure what I think about this, because on one hand, I really do think that if you're going to a restaurant, if I saw a restaurant and it was crowded, restaurants, people are talking, they're laughing, it's small, it's not the best ventilated area, you're eating, so you got your mouth open, people talk while they eat, it's fucking disgusting, and, you know, I'm not saying that I would feel comfortable walking in there, especially if I saw it crowded rather than 25% capacity. I probably wouldn't want to go to that restaurant right now, which is precisely the reason that I wouldn't go to that restaurant, which is my choice. And if somebody wants to go, it's theirs. And when I meet with random people that I don't know, I stand far away from them enough that hopefully I don't have a problem. I feel very strange about this issue because as someone who believes it is an actual real virus, that wearing a mask, cleaning, socially distancing is a good way to avoid it, common sense stuff, it puts me at odds with people who think that it is fake. But as someone who is not for vague, seemingly never-ending lockdowns that the moment they're lifted, cases come back, which then causes a justification for another lockdown, which then when it finally lifted, cases come back because lockdowns don't fix the issue, they just delay the issue. It puts me at odds with people who believe that common sense controls during a pandemic make total sense. Common sense changes in behavior. So on this issue, I genuinely do seem to piss off virtually everybody. And when I meet someone that I agree with on one or the other thing, they disagree with me on the rest of it. I'm kind of ready for 2020 to be over in that regard. I don't know. This is interesting. I'm curious to see what winds up happening to Dominic Restiano. I hope the best for him, his restaurant, his employees, and his customers. Let me know what you think in the comments down below.